All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to the WTCF podcast. It's Charlie here hanging out at the house, and I wanted to talk about the intention from last week, and maybe this is something that helps you out. In order to improve, one must be willing to look foolish sometimes, basically stating that if you're too scared to kind of look like a fool every once in a while, you're probably not going to learn new stuff. And one of the first things that I think about in that one is, when we start to grow up and start to walk a little bit, most likely your parents were probably laughing at you as you got up and fell and probably felt really proud. You might have looked really silly doing it, but you continued to do it until you stood up and started walking and eventually started running. And now we look back at it and it's like, well, that's something we've always just done, right? Like we've been doing this for so long, we do it without even thinking about it. Something that was at one point of our life so unquestionably difficult is now super easy peasy. Again, perspectives, right? Some people don't figure it out, or some people have some other issues getting to that point where they lose it. But again, the more we put ourselves in an environment where we're going to look a little bit foolish or silly, is going to grant a better opportunity for us to learn and improve and get better at things in our own life. So another case in point where, if you start to feel this like urge in the back of your mind that you want to accomplish something and you think it's kind of silly, go ahead and get started. So one of the things I can go ahead and speak to directly on this one is when I became a yoga instructor originally. At first, I didn't want to do it. Honestly, I was really, really scared. I thought it was foolish, and being a straight white male in my 30s trying to do it, that's not even. I'm not even the demographic for people who do or want to do yoga. That didn't seem right. It seemed kind of weird. But the community in which I was in and the people that I was working with made it really comforting and kind of helped me when I started feeling a little bit silly or foolish or stupid. And I can go talk to them open and honestly about my experience. And they were open and honest in sharing that stuff back with me to help me understand more about how to improve. And eventually I just kept looking at it going, all right, well, if I want to go ahead and be a leader one day, I need to be able to walk in and command a room. And what better way? Like to walk into a room full of women. And the joke that I make all the time, or I used to make all the time, is like I can walk into a room full of women, tell them bend over, and they say thank you at the end. I get it. It's sexist, blah, blah, blah. But I always thought it was kind of funny because at the end of the day, getting into down dog or these other compromising positions, I never did it with like the bad intent to be a pervert or anything stupid like that. But it was a funny like notion to kind of think it's like, well, yeah, like who's going to have the guts to go in and walk in and do something like this? And then people actually say thank you at the end. And the environment in which I was working in, the people that I got to go ahead and spend my time with helped me so much in developing that. And now I can go ahead and teach a yoga class and not even think twice about it. It's super easy peasy. Some of those movements become part of my warm up. Some of those things become part of the exercises that I do for myself to make sure that I can stay healthy. And I can use those things that I've learned to teach. If anything, it taught me how to teach people. So without some of that other work, I might never have become me by looking foolish and looking silly and being like the wrong demographic for something and still trying my damnedest to go do it. So now, as I go through my life, a lot of times when I start to feel a little bit foolish about what I'm doing, I can take a second and go, well, what is the purpose of this? What is the reasoning behind me wanting to do this? And I'll start to kind of walk my way through it. And as human beings, we are irrational. So whether it be rational or not, I'll come up with a reason to keep on going or to tell myself that it's the right call. And that's what kind of led me into doing more and more with my own life. So opening up a business is super scary, and I feel really stupid a lot of the times trying to get this work done and still have a regular life. And it's really, really hard and confusing and difficult. But this is the life that I chose because what I wanted to be able to do at the end of the day is to be more helpful to other people, to help teach them the things that I've spent my time on and give them a better shot to live a healthy, happy life. And that's not so much for me anymore. So the business stuff that I need to go ahead and do, that's not even for my own success. I don't give a shit about the money anymore when it comes down to it. The look in somebody's eye when they finally start to figure it out, or when they finally hit that next milestone, or suddenly they don't feel so stupid and foolish for the work that they're doing. And they're like, oh, now you can go ahead and start. And I think that's really important for all of us to take that time to recognize, again, the things that we think about become eventually our actions become our behaviors. So if you're really focused in on trying to get better at something, let's say you're scared to go do something, but you think about it, go ahead and look a little bit foolish. Know that there's always another opportunity to grow and to get a little bit better. So from that, I sometimes like to think about it as a knowledge circle or the wheel of knowledge, whatever. It's stupid, but this is how my brain processes it. Maybe I've talked about this before, but hell, these are usually really short. Let's lengthen this one out a little bit. When you get started with something, you usually suck at it. You're bad. And people tell you you're bad and they'll berate you for it. And they say, you suck. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this because you suck. And they'll go on and on about that. But you're like, for whatever reason, I really enjoy this. Within my heart of hearts, this is something that I want to go ahead and focus in on. And the things that I'm really bad at grant me the biggest opportunity of growth, right? I don't need as much time to learn exponentially more. If I get really, really good at something, so the case I like to use, if I get really good at bench pressing and I get to 700 pounds, how much work and energy is it going to take to get to 705 pounds? It's going to be a hell of a lot more that compared to if I wanted to go ahead and work on something I was really bad at, right? Like moving into something like mobility, making sure my shoulders are functioning properly. If I'm not spending the time, I won't get better at it, right? So I can get really, really good at something until, the amount of work and effort that goes into it is just exponential. So you start off and you suck and you keep working at it and you get told you suck, but you keep working at it. And then one day someone says, hey, you got better. And you take that and you use it as an opportunity to say, well, maybe I did get better. And you start to get that little bit of confidence in yourself. Maybe I am learning. Maybe I'm a little bit better. So you go a little bit further. Somebody else starts to say, man, you kind of know what you're doing. So you start to, man, maybe I do know what I'm doing. This is exciting. I want to learn more. So you keep going because now you start to have this little bit of like a wave of momentum that kind of gets you going. So you keep going until eventually, like, man, I am getting really good at this. Like, I recognize where I was making my mistakes. I recognize what I need to go ahead and do next. I've definitely improved. Until eventually someone says, man, you're really great at this. And you go, yes, I am great at this. And that's awesome feeling where suddenly you're the smart person in the room when it comes down to it. People are coming to you with questions. How do you go ahead and do it? They're trying to learn from you. That's amazing. Absolutely lean into it. And then this wonderful day happens. Turns out you know nothing. You learn something new that completely shocks you down to your core about all of the work that you've done. It's essentially the same as climbing the mountain and climbing the mountain and climbing the mountain. And right when you get to the top, the clouds part and you realize there's more mountain to climb. But what's interesting is you already have all that other information behind you about what you've learned. So you get to start all over again because life isn't about the destination. It's not where we end up, it's the journey and where we go. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day as long as we have some direction on what we're trying to accomplish. So we can give ourselves that chance to reset. Or when we reach the top of the mountain, we can go ahead and look at a different mountain and say, well, all of this helped me now to turn to go this angle instead of that angle. And we just start over again. So you go, man, turns out I know nothing, thus completing the circle. So when I'm talking with people, I kind of like that circle analogy where you get really good and then suddenly you realize you don't know anything. You graduate from a beginner to a novice. You graduate from novice to an intermediate, from an intermediate to an advanced to an expert, and then realize you really don't know that much. And the amount that you do know, it's not exponentially more than a lot of other people that if they spent a little bit of their time, they can probably pick up a majority of the stuff that you spent your time on. And it's a good thing. And part of being human is the fact that we can use that to our advantage. The roads that we've taken, the paths that we've had, we could help somebody else get further along by giving them the shortcuts on how to get to the right spot. And sharing that information, saying, you don't have to spend the next 5-10 years figuring out all this stuff. I'm going to teach you everything that I can, and you'll be able to do most of what I can do in 3 to 6 months, maybe, depending on the topic, right? Depending on the task. So it's always good to go out there and make sure that the things that you think you're really, really good at, take a second and realize you're getting really close to starting over, which is a good thing. And also, this is your opportunity to share all of that knowledge. So this is my call to you, basically saying, if you think you know a whole bunch of stuff, or even a little bit more, start to help people. Start a podcast, start a blog, start talking to people, share the information and help somebody get further along because we'll all do better at the end for it. If everyone shared the stuff that they were really good at, we'd all get really good at stuff instead of just trying to keep it hidden away or saying, hey, this is how I maintain value and make sure that other people can't do what I do. Silly. Give yourself a really good chance to share the excellent knowledge that you have and help somebody else along. And on that note, good luck.